Hi, I'm Reid Darby, and this is Crash Course U.S. History. Today we're going to be talking about two of who I think are the coolest and my favorite presidents. Because that's not a topic, we're going to have to talk about the other guy too. So we're calling today Crash Course Presidents of Our Lifetime.
Hey, Mr. Darby, it's me from the past. Isn't that the Monica Lewinsky guy?
Yes, but we're not going to talk about that because neither did Bill Clinton. The first president we're going to talk about, even though none of us remember him, is Bill Clinton. Although a pretty good president, his administration was plagued by scandals such as Whitewater and the one that he doesn't talk about. So we're going to talk about other parts than the scandals of his presidency. First off, there was the creation of NAFTA, which involved the US, Canada, and Mexico. In 1994, Bill Clinton helped to create NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. This was important because it helped to support economic opportunity between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. Although this helped the economy, it also received some criticisms from the more conservative members of the government. Part of the reason that NAFTA was so controversial is because it led to outsourcing of American jobs to other places like Mexico. Governments have been ceding power to big multinational corporations in the market. We see them manifest in a variety of ways, where governments are giving up power to big international institutions like the World Trade Organization, or NAFTA, which are disabling governments' ability to protect the rights of their own people. Clinton instituted many economic changes, including tax increases on the richer Americans, something that was later undone by President Bush. The internet played an important role in the economy during the Clinton administration, best seen in the 1997 stock market bubble crash of the internet and the dot-com boom. Peter Singer describes it: the internet, like the steam engine, is a technological breakthrough that changed the world. The Clinton administration also saw the beginning of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, a controversial policy later in the 2000s that involved homosexuals not sharing their sexual orientation, but it was the first time that homosexuals were allowed to join the military. Hi, I'm Foreign Policy Reid Darby, and now we're going to talk about the things that presidents did outside of America. Clinton became involved in ethnic controversy in the former Yugoslavia. With the support of NATO, but without the blessings of the UN, he became involved using the moral imperative to get American support behind his actions to intervene. However, Russia and the United States had different views on how the ethnic conflict in Yugoslavia should be handled. However, with the bombings, unapproved by the UN, Clinton was able to force the Yugoslavian leaders into talking about peace. Clinton also became involved in conflict in Rwanda. Here, warlords were fighting with each other, and between 500,000 and 1 million people were killed. Clinton chose to involve 200 non-combatant troops and airdrop in supplies to help the victimized Rwandans. However, he withdrew these troops, and in the end, in his conference following the withdrawal, all he had to say was, "I blew it." This period of time also saw the first main terrorism inside the United States. Unknown to many Americans, 9/11 was not the first time the World Trade Centers were bombed. Back in the 1990s, a car bomb was detonated beneath Tower 1. This was when Bill Clinton enacted Decision Directive 39, which allotted funds for counterterrorism to the FBI and CIA. The legacy of Bill Clinton's administration domestically was that he ran as a new Democrat, something that can be seen in America following his presidency. Additionally, he did an excellent job of advancing human rights and civil rights. Bill Clinton described this saying, "It turns out that advancing equal opportunity and economic empowerment is both morally right and good economics, because discrimination, poverty, and ignorance restrict growth, while investments in education, infrastructure, and scientific and technological research increase it, creating more good jobs and new wealth for all of us." Even though Clinton had many domestic aims when he came into office, he was forced to deal with many international conflicts. Involving talks with the Russians and the other members of the international community, Clinton was forced to complete George H.W. Bush's SMART treaties and additionally decrease the amount of arms throughout the world and help to make long-term improvements in international safety because he thought more long-term than short-term. The presidency of George W. Bush was one that was plagued with controversy before it even began. When he ran against Al Gore in 2000, the popular vote had Al Gore winning. However, it went down to the Electoral College. It was up to Florida, where George's brother, Jeb Bush, was governor. Jeb said that George W. Bush won the Electoral College, which would make George W. Bush the 43rd President of the United States. However, Gore attempted a recount. This went on in the Supreme Court, in which case they sided with George W. Bush. This decision was one of controversy that followed him throughout the remainder of his presidency. George W. Bush was forced to face something extremely difficult: 9/11. Jet fuel can't out steel beams? Shut up, Stan. 9/11, in which almost 3,000 people died, was the worst terrorism act against the United States to date. What's that? It's time for the mystery document? Good evening. Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. The victims were in airplanes or in their offices. Secretaries, businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads, friends and neighbors. I know this. It's Al Gore's losing speech after the 2000 election. It was George Bush's 9/11 speech. Lasting effects of 9/11 can be seen today in the Department of Homeland Security and the Patriot Act, two things that are both very controversial and very protective for the government. 9/11 wasn't the only important domestic issue for George W. Bush. He was also faced with Hurricane Katrina. This hurricane that hit New Orleans needed support from the government. However, the National Guard couldn't be deployed because it was off overseas, fighting terrorism, like it should be. Despite this, the reaction time was poor, and George W. Bush ended up being to blame for most of the poor response time and deaths following the catastrophe. Bush became involved overseas because of his issues of needing to fight against terrorism and for his need to destroy and find nuclear weapons. Even though it's never a good idea to declare war on nouns, it was a good idea to declare war on terrorism, because terrorism's evil, and George W. Bush wasn't. George W. Bush was a cool guy, and he wasn't the kind of guy to half-ass something and only declare war on a few terrorists. He declared war on all terrorists, and anybody who harbored him. That's why the Bush Doctrine is sick. George used the Bush Doctrine to invade Afghanistan in the hunt for Osama bin Laden. Although it's suspected that bin Laden left Afghanistan early on in the military's invasion, Bush continued his fight, primarily because of issues that plagued his father, H.W. Bush, and his lack of re-election in 1992 after he pulled out of the Middle East too early. Because of this, Bush decided to stay involved and make sure the job was done before he left. Because something that George W. Bush liked to do was fix stuff that Bill Clinton screwed up, he decided to invade Iraq and topple Saddam. Clinton thought it'd be a good idea to make him a dictator, but Bush and his cabinet knew better, and that's why we invaded and made sure that Saddam Hussein didn't rule a Middle Eastern country that did harbor weapons of mass destruction. What's that, Stan? There's no proof? The proof's in the pudding, Stan. Important parts of his presidency are his increased spending abroad, which hurt the economy at home, something that President Obama had to deal with. Additionally, his instigation of the No Child Left Behind policy, something controversial today, and his response to Hurricane Katrina are important parts of his domestic legacy. Not only did George W. Bush leave an important legacy domestically, he also left one internationally. Following 9/11, he became involved in many things overseas, including Iraq and Afghanistan. Even though these things were 100% correct, he still got some flack for it, and that's why his legacy includes things such as international involvement, which isn't popular with all people in America. Soon after coming into office in 2008, Obama passed a stimulus package worth over $789 billion. This was to aid with infrastructure issues following the heavy international spending. He passed TARP, or TARP, to help with the housing crisis. Not long after Obama came into office, the housing crash happened. Coincidence? I can't tell you what I think, but Stan doesn't think so. Housing interest rates were supposed to go up, so people were buying heavily in property. However, when the stock market crashed, people who invested their money in property lost big. This president created Obamacare, the largest welfare program since LBJ's Great Society. Obamacare helped to increase Medicare and Medicaid to older people and people who were disabled. Obamacare included policies such as preventing healthcare corporations from denying people coverage just because of their existing diseases. On one hand, people think that Obamacare was good because it helped to increase personal protection with insurance agencies. On the other hand, some people believe that Obamacare was too much of an overstepping of the government's role. In 2010, the Democrats lost their majority in Congress, and because of this, the later part of Obama's presidency was often plagued with gridlock in Congress that was controlled by the Republicans. Following the tragic events of Sandy Hook, Obama passed 23 executive orders helping to implement new changes involving gun violence. Even though Obama did this to help the country, some people opposed it because they thought it was an infringement on their personal freedoms. Obama said, "Has terrible consequence for our society, and if we can only do one thing to stop it, we should all try and do that." Then, in 2013, Obama declared that he was himself a full supporter of gay marriage. Following this, many states legalized civil union between homosexuals. Because of this, both supporters and dissenters of gay marriage rioted. Domestically, Obama was faced with many issues such as race and police brutality. My favorite words by the President Barack Obama were probably these: "We got him." That's referring to Obama's successes in the hunting and execution of Osama bin Laden. Despite peace talks in the Middle East, terrorism continued to be a plaguing problem. This can be seen not only in Al-Qaeda, but also in the new ISIS or ISIL, which is taking over vast stretches of the Middle East. This creates issues not only between the rogue state of ISIS in the United States, but also to the accepted state of Syria in the United States, because Syria is flaunting the fact that ISIS is becoming such a strong power within their borders. Oh wait, sand, my hat! Alright, back to the foreign policy. Even though he's still our president, we can still make conjectures about how future generations will view the administration of Barack Obama. Things such as gun violence, international policy, the war on terror, piracy, gun control, police brutality, cutting down on obesity, the involvement of the First Lady in issues, taking Pop-Tarts out of the vending machines, and many other things will be important and how the future generations view Barack Obama. Now let's go to the thought bubble to see how things might shape up in 2016.
Thank you so much, Reid Darby. Well, as you know, I'm campaigning for president in 2016, and I'm going to be so much better than my ex-husband, Bill Clinton. But we're not going to talk about why he's my ex-husband. But anyways, I'm going to be the best president ever, not to mention the first female president, and no one will stop me. Hope to see you guys in 2016 now that you can vote. Vote for me, Hilary Clinton, for president.
The 2016 election is right around the corner. Because we'll be 18 in that time, it's important for us to take note of the actions of the presidents that came before. Their successes and failures can help us to make informed decisions about who and how we want our country to be led. For Crash Course U.S. History, I'm Reid Darby.